Okay, top 10 heavyweights 2021. Let's go. Despite COVID, 2020 was a decent year for heavyweight boxing. We started off with the mega fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury knocked out Deontay Wilder in spectacular fashion to claim the WBC and the Ring Magazine Championship of the World. About halfway through the year, we had some heavyweight drama when Oleksander Povetkin upset Dillian White with a spectacular uppercut knockout, which was covered on this channel, link below. And then at the end of the year, Anthony Joshua finally got to emerge from his hiding place up in Sheffield, and he put on a really good display against his mandatory Kubrat Pulev, which leaves things in a really interesting place going into 2021. Are we going to see the massive mega fights that we've been waiting for some time in the heavyweight division? Without further ado, let's have a look at my top 10 heavyweights going into 2021. Number 10, he's 147 years old, he's from Cuba, no one's seen his birth certificate for many a year, it is Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was knocked out hard by Deontay Wilder in his last major fight, but he still gets into this top 10 despite his spectacular age because he has amazing boxing fundamentals and very good punch power. And in the first Deontay Wilder fight, it seemed as though he was only a few seconds away from maybe finishing Wilder. And you just can't discount someone with that level of experience and skill. So Luis Ortiz just sneaks into the top 10. Number 9 on this list is Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, the British heavyweight, was on a spectacular run of form on BT Sport going into 2020, and his punch power and his amazing jab mean that I still believe that one day he has a really good chance of becoming a heavyweight champion of the world. But his ambitions were put on hold this year when he was defeated by Joe Joyce after succumbing to a pretty horrible eye injury. Now, that brings him down the list because A, he's lost his undefeated record, B, he may have an outstanding injury with the eye, and C, it did appear as though he kind of gave up in the fight a little bit because the pain was getting too much. Now, far be it from me, who's never stepped in a professional boxing ring, to say that he shouldn't have done that, but it certainly drops him further down this list in terms of people who are extremely likely to be a champion in the future. So his dreams were put on hold by Joe Joyce, who basically just jabbed his nut in for 11 rounds until his eye completely swelled up and closed. Whether that injury is a consistent problem for Dubois in the future, we will see. But one thing's for sure, he's not the finished article yet, but his power means that he's only going to climb up this list in the months and years to come. Now we come on to some former champions. Number 8, Joseph Parker from New Zealand. Fast hands, decent power. He's always fallen short at the elite level, but he's a former world champion, and he still has a chance of climbing the ranks in the division and going a bit further with his career. Number 7, Andy Ruiz. Now, we all remember when Andy Ruiz shocked the entire boxing world with his performance at Madison Square Garden against Joshua, where his hand speed and his determination and his clear punch power showed him to be a genuine, legitimate world-level heavyweight. He was throwing left hooks at Joshua that was scrambling him. His hands were so lightning fast. He moved quickly with his feet, which you don't expect, obviously, when you look at him. Andy Ruiz is not the most good-looking heavyweight you're ever going to see. He's stocky, he's very chubby, but his hands are lightning fast. They're accurate. He's got that Mexican style where his hands come up. He doesn't mind taking a few jabs to get into range, and when he lets his shots go, he can do it with some terrifying speed and power. Ruiz is now training with Eddie Reynoso in the Canelo camp. And if he gets that training right, stays consistent with his fitness training and his diet and stuff like that, he can be a genuine contender in this division, because I don't think anyone on this list has the hand speed and the combination punching of Andy Ruiz. Number 6, we've got Alexander Povetkin. He is a grandee of the division, an Olympic gold medalist, and he's just coming off the back of a spectacular victory against Dillian White, which puts him firmly in the top 10 heavyweights in the world. However, I don't see him remaining here for long. He's very skillful, he's got punch power, but age is not on his side, and I can see him going down this list in the future. So number 6 for Povetkin. Number 5 is Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder would have been close to number 1 in this list a year ago. Look, at the beginning of 2020, that rematch with Tyson Fury completely destroyed Deontay Wilder. I think if you're known as an extreme power puncher in the way that like Mike Tyson was in the past, for example, and you get this kind of like mental image of yourself as being, unbeatable, just an absolute force of nature, and then one day you land on someone and nothing happens, just like happened when Wilder landed on Fury and he got up in that first fight. And then Fury comes and brings the fight to you in the rematch in the way that he did and showed off his power and his strength. I think that's going to be very psychologically damaging to a fighter like Wilder, who built his whole kind of psyche on this idea of him being unbeatable and unstoppable. So I think Deontay Wilder's never going to be the same fighter again that he was in his long undefeated streak. but he's got to be on any heavyweight list because statistically speaking, he's the hardest punching heavyweight of all time. At number 4, we've got Oleksander Usyk, freshly moved up from cruiserweight. He is probably the most skillful out-and-out boxer on this list. He is an Olympic gold medalist also. He was the undisputed cruiserweight champion. His performance against Chisora wasn't spectacular in my book, but his technical boxing ability will get him through 9 fights out of 10 against any of the guys on this list. The only question that remains is when he gets up to the very top level, does he have the punching power to keep those enormous heavyweights at bay? If you look at a comparison of another cruiserweight who stepped up to heavyweight and tried to challenge for the world title, it will be David Haye. Now, David Haye never had the boxing brilliance that Oleksander Usyk possesses, but what he did have was that stinging power that meant that any heavyweight of any size had to be careful when they approached him. And what I wonder is, when Usyk gets in against the really big boys, are they just going to walk him down and discard his punch power? Because if they do that, then all the skill in the world won't really save you. Number 3 on my list is Dillian White. He lost to number 6 on this list, Povetkin, in 2020, so objectively speaking, this probably is the wrong call. But before that, White's resume was looking absolutely spectacular. He was taking on unbelievably difficult challenges, Joseph Parker, Oscar Rivas, and many others, and he was displaying knockout power, excellent boxing ability, an amazing jab, and he is probably the most improved fighter on this list. Between his loss to Anthony Joshua in, I think it's like 2015, and his loss to Povetkin, he built up an amazing resume of fighting all those people that nobody else wanted to fight, putting on amazing performances, showing serious toughness, amazing punch power. His left hook to the body is terrifying, and I think that he has the potential to claim a world championship within the next 2 years. Number 2, and this should be no surprise, is Anthony Joshua. So Anthony Joshua is one of the most genetically blessed fighters I think we've ever seen in the heavyweight division. He is tall, he is muscular, he is fast, he is explosive, he's got power. But I've often thought that Joshua is not a natural boxer. He doesn't possess that flow, that relaxed smoothness that you would see in other people on this list. He came to boxing quite late, and I think it shows sometimes in the way that he boxes. His loss to Andy Ruiz, I think, demonstrated that he can be quite fragile at times and that he is open to being hit. His defense has been leaky in the past. His style has been quite robotic and quite easy to predict in the past, and that's why I don't think he'll get past the number 1 on this list. One thing I would say is that he has shown different dimensions to his boxing game in the past year and a half. So his rematch with Andy Ruiz showed that he knew how to do more than just seek and destroy, walk up to your opponent, throw combination punches. He was jabbing, he was moving his feet, he was coming in and out of range in a more subtle and considered way. So that impressed me. And then recently against Kubrat Pulev, he showed even more boxing skill than I thought was possible from him. He even put Kubrat Pulev down with a pull counter, a little Mayweather move there, which is way more sophisticated than what we have seen from Anthony Joshua in the past. Also, some of his footwork in that fight was, in my opinion, better than what we've seen from him before, and showing that he's putting in more time in the ring and less time lifting weights in the gym, and I think that's going to pay off in terms of his boxing ability. Number 1 on this list is the Ring Magazine and WBC champion of the world, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is 6'9", he can box out of both stances, he is quick, his head movement is on point, his footwork is unbelievable, he's twitchy, he feints, he psychs you out with his eyes, and in the last fight with Deontay Wilder, he showed another dimension to his game yet again, when he just put on the pressure and destroyed Wilder with strength and power. The reason why Tyson Fury is and will remain at the top of this list is because he has several ways to beat everyone else on the list. If he wants to, he can turn up and he can outbox you for 12 rounds with relative ease, or with the exception possibly of Oleksander Usyk. And now what we've seen is that if he wants to, he can also walk towards you, throw power shots, and take a more aggressive stance in a fight too. And it's for that reason that Tyson Fury belongs at the number 1 spot as the best heavyweight in the world. Maybe these rankings are going to change in the months to come. I'm really looking forward to seeing them shift as more and more fights get announced. But the really big one we're looking for, of course, is the unification match between Joshua and Fury. And I'm desperate for that fight to happen this year. And I'll be making a breakdown and a prediction for that fight on this channel shortly. So that was my top 10 heavyweights going into 2021. If you disagree or you think I've put someone in the wrong place, feel free to put a comment down below. This is my list only, it's not meant to be objective, but what I would say is that there are some amazing heavyweights on this list, both young and old, and I think we're in a real golden age of the heavyweight division. So if we can get around the COVID restrictions and get the fights on, we're looking at some unbelievable matchups coming in the next 12 to 18 months. And when those fights happen, I'll be reviewing them right here on this channel. Cheers.